Lin Yao's disaster actually started from the day that Huagou entered the town. 4 or 5 days later, Huagou returned to the village. Huagou burst his oar-equipped boat on the stone pier in front of Amu's house. Many people saw Huagou from a distance on the other side of the alley. Huagou, smoking a cigarette, was climbing up from the stone dock step by step. People showed great enthusiasm for the appearance of Huagou at this time, because Lin Yao was standing on the dock. As everyone knows, Lin Yao is arrogant very much. Except for Amu, she hardly put anyone in the village in her eyes. Huagou had stopped Lin Yao on half of her way for several times and made fun of Lin Yao, but the effect was very unsatisfactory. Huagou had been a famous resourceful star in the village, but no matter how hard Huagou played his reed tongue in front of Lin Yao just looked at him coldly. Before Huagou finished, Lin Yao's nostrils symmetrically pit out 2 blasts of cold air with a look of despising him, turned around and walked away humming a song. Of course, Huagou wants to earn his face back. He has been defeated so much, but fought repeatedly. People saw Huagou crawling on the shore from a distance and slowly approached Lin Yao. Many people saw Huagou standing in front of Lin Yao, throwing his cigarette butt on the ground, stepping on with one foot, and smashed a few times. The unexpected thing happened at this time. People thought Lin Yao would turn her face arrogantly, floating away like 2 butterflies on her head. But nope. Huagou's mouth just moved twice. Lin Yao's body was stunned as if it was overcharged, and both shoulders shrugged quickly. The most surprising scene finally happened. Lin Yao held her head and ran away. Lin Yao's running away was absolutely too panicked to go. She didn't even see the correct position of her gait and slammed her head against the fence. Her panicking was like a sparrow that wrongly entered a classroom and ran into the window glass desperately to escape. Huagou stood there, did not move, lit a cigarette again, smiled, and walked towards the crowd. Everyone gathered around and asked, "What magic did you use, Huagou? How did you settle Lin Yao in just a few words?" Huagou laughed for a while, took out a fist, raised his thumb and pinky, and said, "What a few words! 6 words, just 6 words. I sent her away. What pride! Look at her pride now." Huagou gave a long sigh and said, "From the city, Lin Yao? Pig fart. Just like Mei Xiang, from the town, the cooper's naughty rash's 3rd daughter, Xu Kouzi. What Lin Yao? It was all made up by herself. She wasn't dumb when she lied. When I met her, I only said 6 words. Snotty rash, Xu Kouzi. Dumbfounded, and couldn't even find her way. Why pride? Now look at her pride." The whole village woke up right after the dream, and the people showed their due anger. Xu Kouzi should not deceive the folks in the village after all. Even the students in the elementary school expressed their honest enthusiasm. They gathered around the patio of Amu's house on the way from school, shouting in unison with their crisp, childlike voices, "Snotty rash, Xu Kouzi! Snotty rash, Xu Kouzi!" They can only be like this because this is the fact. When the spring festival was closed, people heard a funny thing when they were going to the market in the town. Of course it was about Xu Kouzi. Now, when the people in the village are going to the market, they have a little more fun in asking about Xu Kouzi's past and inquiring Xu Kouzi's background. There are so many fun things about Xu Kouzi. According to Xu Kouzi's neighbors, Xu Kouzi is quite interesting. At this age, she still draws maps on her bed when it is cold. Drawing a map is an interesting term, which is actually bedwetting. Xu Kouzi's bedwetting was certainly taken back to the village, but everyone didn't take it too seriously. Of course, the thing is fun, but what happened to Xikozi is logical and normal. It wasn't expected that Amo would die on this issue. Who can think of it? Otherwise such big thing would not happen. That day was actually quite ordinary. After the noon, Huagou passed by Amo's patio, where Amo was basking in the sun. Huagou saw Amo and said, Amo, the sun is so good. Why don't you take out the beddings to dry? Huagou was actually being kind, just as Huagou said, otherwise Amo will be wet at night. After listening to Huagou's words, Amo stood in the middle of the patio and froze for a long time. Amo blushed and whispered, No. Huagou said, Amo, you never lie. Amo closed his eyes and yelled, Just no! Huagou was laughing, but suddenly found that Amo was abnormal. Amo's flushed cheeks turned purple, and the blue veins on his forehead burst out with his separated eyes. Huagou saw Amo's temper loss countless times and never took it seriously, but Amo was definitely a little scary this time. Huagou was afraid that Amo would rush out, so he left quietly. After walking a long way, he still heard Amo yelling, No, in the patio. Lin Yao came out of the bedroom at this time and saw that Amo was holding a pole in his hand, tickling his neck, breathing heavily, and looking around in the patio with red eyes. Lin Yao didn't know what happened to her husband, and there was no one around, so Amo lost his aim in searching. Lin Yao walked up and said, Husband, what no? But Amo pushed her against the wall and bounced back. Amo didn't know that Lin Yao, sleeping on the ground, had bleeding from the back of her head. His eyes were still searching. He finally found a chicken coop at home. Amo rushed forward, kicked the fence apart, waved the wooden pole in his hand, and attacked the hundreds of hens of his old dad. Hundreds of hens were frightened and started running and flying, scrambling. They rushed into the patio, which exploded the wings of the hens. The feathers and the hens' cries were flying everywhere. Amo screamed at the flying chicken feathers, No! No! Just no!